suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
What's up guys, Cass here from GiveWave Studios, and on this one I'm going to go through the steps on how to assemble your emergency button and your med bay stands. If you guys notice, my little grooves here are a little darker than the one that comes in the kit, and that's because I simply just grabbed a Sharpie and drew some darker green inside of these little areas. So that's all that is. This step is as simple as that. Okay, and now you guys can see the two next to each other. So depending on how dark you want it to be, you can go with a light green like this example, or you can go with a darker green like this example. Completely up to you. This is a DIY kit. You guys are encouraged to be creative, and my instructions as usual are nothing but guidelines. Okay, so next up, we're going to grab our batteries from a pack. Sometimes the batteries will come pre-installed, sometimes you will get just a pack with batteries. Also, for the light pack, sometimes this will have 4 screws here, and these 2 screws are the only ones you need to remove in order to open the latch like this. If you open these, the whole thing's gonna pop open. You don't want that, so only do these 2 if you end up with one that has the 2 screws. I don't manufacture these lights, I get them from China, so sometimes they come one way, sometimes they come another. Okay, so lights in, as you can see. Okay, shiny surface here, textured surface here. Close, turn on. Our lights are working, turn off. So now we're going to unravel. So with our lights unraveled, what we're going to do is go ahead and you want to skip the first 2, and actually skip the first 3, go to the 4th LED, bend it onto itself like so. Okay, slightly curve it with the LED facing towards the curve, and then you're going to insert it into the bottom hole for it to come out the top hole. So like that, jiggle it around until it comes out of this hole, and then you're just going to leave it up like this and move on to the next one. So skip another 4 LEDs and do the same thing for all 4 dockets. Okay, once you have your 4 LEDs sticking out of all 4 of the little docket areas, with the rest of your lights, you're just going to bundle them and kind of spread them out towards the middle area here. Okay, bring in the cord, just kind of press them down so they stay kind of flat to the bottom here. Okay, bring in your cord. You're going to put your wire next to this side, and you'll notice that there is a slit here that gives you some room to slide the wire in next to the battery pack. And if, like this example, there is a little bit of gunk there, you can just use a knife or an X-Acto blade to just kind of clear up whatever might be stuck in there. You shouldn't have anything, because usually I take out the supports from the prints before I send them out, but just in case I miss something. Okay, so move your lights. You want the battery to be flat on the bottom there, and just slide that, shimmy it into place until this comes out and you have access to it. Make sure you test your lights to make sure they work, and then you can reorganize your lights inside of here. And now you can even like stick them under the battery pack a little bit so that it holds it down. Alright, so with these now, you're going to push them back in, making sure that the LED is facing you in this direction. So you want to turn it on, make sure the light is facing you, and then you just want to push this back in, find the corresponding string, and just kind of pull it. I don't know if you guys can see this, but right here, you want to pull it, and I'll turn the light on so you guys can see what's happening. Okay, so pull it until it goes into the hole, and it just kind of snaps into place. And now it's just in position, but it's facing out. Okay, same thing for this LED. Okay, and then it should just kind of flick itself into place. Twist it, make sure that it's facing the right position. Alright, and once you have everything in there, you want to, with your lights on, just make sure that you spread out the lights evenly across the entire bottom part here. And you'll notice there are little loops here to avoid the wiring for the node areas here, and then one big area here to avoid the battery. And at this point you can just stick this into place. You don't want to sink this in too deep. You just want to sink it just enough that you can't see those little loops anymore. So like for example here, just kind of bring it down like so, because when you want to open this, it's a lot easier to just kind of like dig a nail in that little area, just kind of access it again. So you never really want to lose those little loops, because it makes it easy to pull the top off. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. For example, if your lights come out of the sockets, super easy, bring it back out and just kind of slide it back in. Sometimes when you're reorganizing the lights, you don't realize that you've kind of pulled on those guys a little bit, so just keep that in mind. But that is pretty much it on this one. And then finally, if you got one of my figures, this little scanning mesh thing goes inside of your crewmate. This doesn't work for the imposter because it is a different setup, because it has a hinge, so it only works for the crewmate. And now you can place your little figure and you can see it being scanned, and you can turn on your light. Alright, that's it for the med bay. Moving on to the emergency button. Alright, so for the emergency button, first thing we're going to do is cut our tape pieces that comes in your kit into 2 equal parts. You can do this however you'd like. My preferred method of doing it is folding it in half, making sure that the lines are perfectly aligned with each other. Okay, once you have that done, if you have a cutting mat, that's super useful, or any cutting surface area really. I'm going to put a ruler right up against the edge of my fold. I'm going to grab a sharp blade, and I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to cut a straight line all the way through my piece. And now we have 2 perfectly even pieces. Alright, so one thing to try and keep in mind when you are cutting these is keep track of which part is the piece that you actually cut and the actual edge of the piece, because you may or may not cut this absolutely straight, but just in case, you want to use the edge, the outer edge of the tape, to do this top line here. That way you're absolutely sure that it's straight, just in case your cut didn't quite make it. So onto this part, you want to make sure that there is any support material is removed from here. You can do this by just jamming something in there and pushing it out. Most of the times I do take this out, but just in case, just to give you guys a sense of what to do if you do have any leftover stuff in there, grab an X-Acto or just kind of clean off whatever edges may be left, and you should be left with something that is nice and clean, not too hard to do. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our piece of tape. Now the tape that gets sent to you is just long enough to be a millimeter over on each side. Okay, so they're pretty much cut to length for this. But if you really wanted to measure and be a stickler about it, if you look at the print lines, it is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th print line that you want to put your top edge of your tape up against. Or you could just line it up with the bottom and then make sure that it's lined up here. So I'm going to grab my piece of tape, unpeel. Okay, you want to start here because we're going to cut this out once we stick the tape. So put it down on your bottom edge here. Remember, you only have about a millimeter, so don't put it too far off that you're off on the other end. Okay, make sure that it's nice and flush with the bottom of your pyramid piece there. Okay, and then you can just fold these over. All right, and then for here, what you want to do is just kind of push your nail or finger into here and just kind of make an impression just to get a general sense of where the hole that you need to cut out is. All right, and once you have something that generally gives you a good idea, you can grab your blade, put a cut down the middle first, and then use that to just kind of cut down and over. Use the edge of the plastic to make sure that you're cutting a straight line. Okay, right here. I'm going to turn it around, cut upwards. Okay, till you feel the edge. Turn it around. Now cut this way till you make it to the other side. Now here can get a little tricky only because there's like a two-part thing here. So what I like to do at this point is cut this off completely, get that out of the way, and then just kind of reassess where it is that my cuts need to happen. Okay, so I can tell I have a little angle there. Cut upwards here, cut inwards here, cut down this way, back out this way, and back down this way. Alright, once I have that, I can just kind of clean this off a little bit, get rid of any excess. This doesn't have to be perfect or precise, you know, this is just the way that I do it. It's simple, to the point, but you know, if you have a better way of doing this, by all means, this is your kit. You be as creative as you want to be with it and find your own ways. So that's it, that's the whole. And now we're ready to move on to the next piece. Again, just put it down at the corner. It's okay to overlap this. All right. Now, because you've already set the precedent for this line, now everything that you're going to put down, you're going to try to align with that top edge. Okay, just to make sure that it's even all the way across. Put this down. Alright, so these should cross at a perfect 90-degree angle here. Okay, wrap. And this guy doesn't need to wrap around. This can stay out because we're going to cut it eventually. So leave this edge out, fold this edge in. Same thing here, we're going to leave this edge out. We're going to fold the other edge in. Here, Okay, edge out, edge in. Edge out, edge out. So as you can see, we have all these 4 edges protruding out. That's kind of how you want to end up with this. And what you're going to do is now grab your blade and brace it at the angle of that pyramid shape and kind of use that to guide your knife down and make a nice clean cut to cut off that excess of the tape. Okay, you're going to do that for all 4 corners. Blade. Alright, and now you can turn around the bottom, and as you can see, there's a little bit of excess, which is perfectly normal, right? Because after you put your first one down, you're lining it up with the top. So making sure that this top is even is most likely going to give you a little bit of extra flashing underneath here. Same thing that we did for the edges, just kind of run the blade towards the very outer edge, and you can very easily just trim this. Okay, the sharper your blade, the cleaner your cuts. Okay, just keep that in mind. Okay, and now our piece is basically complete on the outside. The light, very easy. Again, open your light package. Sometimes your lights will come already included, and as I mentioned in the previous installation for the med bay, sometimes you also have 4 screws instead of just 2. So if you do have a light pack that has 4 screws, in order to access the latch for the battery pack, you only need to take out these 2 screws closest to this rounded edge here. If you take out these guys, the whole thing's going to open. You don't want that, right? And then battery installation, fairly simple. Shiny side with the text goes up this way. Textured side is here at the bottom at the curve. Close that down, and on-off switch to turn your lights on and off. So for this one, you can unravel your lights if you would like. In this example, you can see that I've just kind of let them just scatter around on the edge here. Okay, so you can do that. You can unravel them as much as possible. For the sake of keeping the tutorial short, I'm just going to leave them bundled up. You want to take your cord, put it on the side of your battery pack. This is what this extra notch in here was for, is to leave room for that to kind of slide in. Okay, you're going to make sure that it's completely flush on the bottom, and you're just going to shimmy it out until the edge here just kind of barely touches this. It's just enough so that you can slide your finger on and turn the light on and off. Okay, my light pack goes back in. Again, you can organize your lights however you'd like. And then there's a curve here that goes over the battery so that this can sit flush. And now you can turn your light on and off. Okay, so that's it for the assembly of this part. There's also this little case here. I'm going to go over how I make it, but for now, the DIY kit does not come with it. I might add an option for that at a later point if there's a demand for it. So I'm going to cover how to do this part just in case. That way this tutorial is kind of future-proofing this kit. So you're going to want to grab your clear sheet that you see here. You'll notice that one of the sides is actually longer than the other. It'll be more obvious once we put these lines in here. So you're going to grab a ruler, grab an X-Acto, or anything sharp that can kind of leave a mark. You're going to put your ruler right up on the edge of the line for the tab. It's hard for you guys to see because this is completely clear, but and go ahead and score right there. Okay, if you guys can tell, now I've put a score line here, and we're going to do that for all 4 edges. So you're basically connecting one corner to another with your ruler. Okay, now that you have, hopefully you guys can see better over the gray. Now that you have all 4 lines across, you will automatically notice the longer one. Okay, now all of these tabs are 1 inch wide, so whatever the excess is, if you have a traced cutting board, this is easy, because if you put the corner here, whatever the excess is what you will go ahead and score out. If you don't, just measure 5 millimeters. Just measure 5 millimeters from the tip over. Okay, or you could do 1 inch from here, and you can see whatever the excess is about 1/4 of an inch, which is about 5 millimeters. So that's where you're going to trace your line. So I'm going to use my cutting board because the line's already there for me. I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. Right? As you're doing these scores, just make sure they're all on the same side, and when you are done scoring everything, you're going to fold towards your score. So you can hear how I am scratching the score, and here it's smooth. So where the score is, that's where you're going to fold. So go ahead and find my line, score right along that edge. Okay, now we have 1 fold, and this fold comes outside of the case. And fold right along your line outside of the case. All right, and with all of that done, you're going to grab the clearest tape you can possibly find, Scotch tape, and sometimes these come like blurry or milky. You want the one that's super clear. So you're going to grab yourself a piece of tape, and you're going to put it about halfway through on one side. It's okay if you leave a little bit of excess here. That actually makes it a lot easier to clean up afterwards. Okay, and you fold the edges as flush to each other as possible, and just smooth that part over to the other side, making sure that you leave no bubbles or anything like that. And once you have that done, that little excess that you have there, again with a very sharp blade, go ahead and trim that excess. Look at that, smooth. Okay, and now you have an installed edge, and you can barely see it if you do this properly. So do that for the other 3. Okay, and with that done, we have a nice clear cover for our emergency button. Now this piece is going to go towards the back edge where your switch is. It is slightly larger than this actual groove in here on purpose, so that you just kind of put it to one end or put it to one edge here and just force this one in a little bit. That way it holds it in place and you don't have to worry too much about it. And then if it's a little crooked, you can kind of bend it in some areas and not in some others, and you have a nice clear case for your emergency button. And obviously this doesn't really hinge, it's just meant to look good because this is a stand for your figure, so the figure is just supposed to stay there. Technically you shouldn't have to close the glass casing in order for this to function properly as a figure stand for your sus bean. Alright, and still have access to your on-off switch. So that's pretty much it. Okay, that completes our tutorial for the 2 types of stands, our med bay and our emergency button. And also I don't know if you guys can pick it up, but the tape here is, the yellow areas are reflective. So they're like a 3M reflective, which is another nice little extra detail for this. But yeah, I hope this was useful for you guys. Hope you guys learned a few tricks or two watching the tutorial. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to leave them in the comment section. I try to get back to those as often as possible. And yeah, if you purchase the DIY kits from the website or the Etsy, I appreciate the support. Let me know what you guys would like to see me do a DIY kit of next. I always like to hear ideas of things that maybe I haven't thought of that could possibly turn into really cool products. Alright, this has been Cass from GiveWave Studios, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.